Neuvillette's story quest. We are summoned to his office where he tells us about his concerns about a Melusine named Kiara receiving threat letters.
That's right. Oh, but why? Technically speaking, cases like this are better left to the guards. Neuvillette, Sabine, hey there! What are you talking about? Traveler.
A Melusine named Kiara received a threat letter.
We go to meet Kiara and ask her about the threat letters. She seems to be doing okay and even volunteers to model for a fashion boutique. Neuvillette ponders upon this, and somehow, somewhere, we meet Charlotte, our one and only journalist of Fontaine. We suspect her of being the stalker at first, but eventually we learn that is not the case at all. Then we reach the Fountain of Lucine, where we get sucked into Neuvillette's memories, where the Melusines were hated once upon a time. There we learn about Carole, a Melusine that tried her best to fit into Fontaine, but was eventually caught up in a crime where she was wrongly accused.
The results of the investigation are in, Captain Vautrin.
Go on.
There is no direct evidence, but reasonable inference indicates that the ones controlling the situation are supporters of the old regime, whose interests have been undermined.
Eventually, we learn that Miss Carole unalived herself to prove her innocence, and Vautrin, who deeply cared about her and saw her as his little innocent sister, decides to take matters into his own hands. He kills the person from the old regime who plotted against the Melusines and Monsieur Neuvillette. Eventually, he is brought upon the court of justice, where Neuvillette declares Vautrin guilty and resigns and sets him to jail.
According to the judgment of the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal, Mr. Vautrin will be declared guilty.
We learn that this is why Neuvillette always cares for the Melusines greatly, to avoid such a tragedy. Tragedy where he lost two very close friends, Carole and Vautrin. We eventually head back to his office to look back for clues for the threat letters to Kiara. We eventually find out that Kiara had detained a group of 12 people smuggling in illegal goods, and Miss Navia also joins in, where we get more clues and we find out that a guy from the fortress of Meripede hired to come inside. So we make our way to the fortress of Meripede, where we meet Ridsley, and we ask to meet the alleged person, the mastermind behind Kiara's death threat letters.
This isn't anything new. I figured you had important matters to discuss when the two of you, not to mention the Chief Justice, showed up. Let's assume
We eventually learn that Domenico was behind Kiara's death threat letters and wished to meet him. Apparently, he still thinks the Melusines are dangerous creatures that shouldn't be living in Fontaine, and that he's been organizing, or trying to organize, a group to protest against the Melusines, but has failed countless of times to execute his plan because nobody really thinks the Melusines are bad people.
Is there something else going on behind the scenes here?
He's got the same concerns we do.
I am concerned about this incident because something similar has occurred in the past. I wish to meet Domenico in person and have my questions answered.
That's an easy one. You require me to personally deal with the criminal?
Ridsley.
Okay, I get it. I'll bring Domenico to you. That's your only demand, correct?
Think of it as more of a humble request. I'm here on my own accord, not to formally transfer a criminal for trial. I urge you to set aside any concerns. Thanks for the trouble. Consider me in your debt.